Hey, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us this evening. We promised Andrew Cosby, but I have an announcement to make. I apologize. Unfortunately, Andrew Cosby has been murdered this evening by his evil twin from a parallel universe. It's all very, very tragic, um, and science fictiony. So. Unfortunately, though, his evil twin is going to be joining us this evening. He mentioned that he's going to be taking all of his public appearances, so we're a go. Thanks for joining us, and I would like to start you guys all off with our official theme. My video editor is going to be working on it, but we do have the song. Jesse Blaze donated to the channel. It's KO. It's a beautiful song, and so we'd like to play that while people fill in, and then we're going to bring in Andrew Cosby.
Come on. Human being, you're just a piece of meat. You only threw to this lion just so he could eat. Been hungry for so long, but when I hear my song, I know this ring is the only place I belong. I'm in the beginning of killing for a living. I'm breaking the hearts of innocent women. I'm tired of losing, won't get tired of winning. This time tomorrow, no sorrow, I'm grinning. Just wait till that bell rings. Shooting through to your car, cause I'm a bow and arrow. I got a full quiver, I will deliver. Block out the whole sky with my hair trigger. Just wait till that bell rings. Blood, sweat, and tears all sting. I've given everything. Just wait till that bell rings. Like a man on a mission, a god with a vision. Born into this prison, I cannot risk this decision. I'm on a kick up a storm, hurricane without warn. While your vision is blurring, keep worrying worse than before. Just wait till that bell rings.
Oh, hey Andrew, how you doing?
Hey man, there you go. I couldn't hear you for a second there.
Yeah, I was muted from the music. These rough starts, I was talking about that. They're still happening. I'm
Beast, right?
yeah. I mean, how I explain it is I'm much better at writing comics than I am running podcast shows. So that's a relief. But yeah, I'm sure we'll smooth out. The guys are all telling me can't hear you, bud. Can't hear you, bud. Yeah, embarrassing starts. That's fine though. It comes with the territory. It's a learning process.
My whole life story is an embarrassing start, so that's good.
Yeah, I've had more embarrassing starts, I think, than triumphant ends, but we're getting there. So how are you doing tonight, Andrew?
I'm good, man. I'm real good. Family's safe. I hope everyone out there is safe and healthy. We're locked away here in Holmby Hills in our California house and having a good time.
Everybody's pretty locked down, huh? I mean, we are too, and all the kids are home from school. I have 3 kids, and so we're adjusting to that and working and trying to work on the dream, like pretty much sacrifice sleep hours to do that and still keep everything going.
Newborn, right? That's already a sleep sacrifice.
Yeah, it is, and it's been rough. And in addition, it's a scare too because with the COVID, youngsters and it's a risk. So we've been taking extra precautions to make sure. So it's a lot of work, but
I'm like a doomsday prepper. I told my wife, I guess this was like right back when things first started coming out of China back in January. I came home and I said, "Hey, babe, when you go to Costco, start doubling up and put stuff in the garage, store stuff in the house." And she's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, I'm hearing everything. I've done a lot of research on I've done plague projects before and contagion projects. And I just told her I'm hearing like the kind of dialectics that come out of these things when they're covering stuff up. And I think we're going to be quarantined eventually by this thing. And she at first thought I was crazy, but she did it. She would like double up and buy, a little extra here, a little extra there. And lo and behold, a few months later, we hit quarantine.
Yeah, and then people just start buying up everything, and we weren't really equipped as a nation to really deal with that kind of thing. No. I mean, like the influx and people buying up supplies and stocking on necessities and those kind of things. So we've been lucky where we're at because we're kind of remote, but I see terrible things happening. The things like with Italy when the pandemic first hit, and all my friends who are on the West Coast or anybody in the hubs, the travel hubs. Having a hard time. We have a lot of guys who are based out of Florida. And then, in addition, working in comics, and you work in entertainment as well, the film industry as well as the comic industry has been completely shut down. There's really, just for safety reasons. And so it's a shift, and a lot of people are out of work or unable to keep their income going because of conventions. A lot of artists make their extra money there or make their income there. So it's kind of going to remote. It's going to online. It's going to digital, and so
a lot of stuff. A lot of people are talking animation now. I've had like 3 animation offers just this week because I think people realize that's where the business is going to go, right away. We can be developing. I mean, you can be writing anything you want right now, but with animation, you can also be doing designs and production work, and it's a much more. I don't know. That industry is it's a little easier to social distance and still keep the train running.
That's right.
And so it'll be interesting to see how much animation. I mean, I'd love to see a boost in animation anyway. I think there's so many things that haven't been done yet in that medium that I'd like to see more happen anyway. So that could be something positive that comes out of all this madness.
Absolutely, and I agree with you that people can still work on their dreams from home if it's something you can do from a PC like that. If it's a digital trade or that kind of thing, you can still work on those things while you have that extra time at home. I mean, obviously, like this is a tragedy, but like you said, something good can come from it. You mentioned 3 projects that you were working on. Anything I can get you to spill the beans on, Andrew, or what? Can we pry the can open or?
No. Everyone wants to ask me about the one animated project that got leaked.
Yeah, Diablo. I'm infinitely interested in that. I was a nut for that game. My brother and I both played ladder for many seasons on Diablo 2 and 3. It's a beautiful series. It's so imaginative. and it's so immersive where it has that period to it, and there's a mysticism to it and a darkness to it it's always been attractive to me.
It's an awesome game. I mean, it's my kids and I. It's like our favorite game.
Yeah.
And in fact, they've been begging me to. I think the last time we played, we were in the high heavens, which is like toward the end of the Diablo 3.
Oh yeah.
And they've been begging me to get back down in the studio down here and finish up. I've just been too busy to play.
Which is unfortunate. I know what you mean. It's hard as you get older because I gamed a lot more when I was younger, but now it seems like with everything going on, it's so much harder to. But yeah, when we picked up Diablo 3. See, I played 2 with my brother for years growing up, and then now Diablo 3 came out, and then I played. We played as a family, the 4 of us. We played 4-way on Xbox 360. We got Diablo 3. We'd all play here as a family. The kids are into it. So. Yeah, we like the RPG scene. So I was interested in hearing if you had any information, because I was right on top of that. When I heard that, I was like, man, Andrew Cosby's going to be writing a Diablo animated series. Are you kidding me? I'm in 100%.
I can neither confirm nor deny that there is a Diablo animated series. I'm not allowed to talk about it. If there were a series, I could say that it would be pretty awesome. And it would be far different than anyone would expect.
That sounds great.
Series, but I can't. Again, it would be awesome. It would be really animated series.
That sounds awesome. That you may or may not be doing a Diablo animated series.
Yeah.
Or wait, is that too bold? Like maybe that it may or may not be in production, and you may or may not be writing.
I can neither confirm nor deny. I can tell you, I'm excited about the 4th game, which I know they're. Yeah. I know they're working really hard on right now, and the guys at Blizzard have been working their butts off. And I've seen some of the really cool things Blizzard's doing, which I can't talk about either. But not that has anything to do with whether or not I'm doing a series. I just happen to be very, very into Blizzard and very, very into Diablo, and can say that if they were smart, they would try to release any potential series sometime around right after they release the new game. But that's just speculation on my part.
And that's okay that you don't want to speak about it. We haven't started the torture sessions yet, so so I mean that's understandable that this early.
It's an amazing world. I mean, I can talk about the game all day long. It's an amazing world. The potential for taking those characters and those character types and taking them in like completely new directions. It's just got it's got a ton of potential, that property and that franchise.
Yeah, it has so much depth.
I think they'll do that with the new game. I'm really excited to see where they take the game, because I know there's a lot of talk about, delivering a game that the fans are just going to go nuts for. So
yeah, we are going to go nuts for it. I mean, it has a following. The fans of Diablo are strong, and that game for a hack and slash when it started, I mean, it's a hack and slash, but it has so much depth with the story to it.
And I know people didn't respond well to the I guess it was an iPad version of the game or whatever they announced at one of the cons. So I'm sure they're going to work really hard to make sure that they make up for that. So
I think they wanted to make it easily accessible, but it's hard to say when you go through that if the controls for an iPad version or like compared to like PC or like a console, it's hard. People are desensitized because gaming has gotten so good that, with the PC and the graphics that you have, and also with the consoles that are so much different than Atari when I started out. So like, people expect that, and then a different platform, it might have had a different crowd, but I know what they were trying to do. They were trying to make it more easily accessible for people to play the game on different platforms.
Well, and invite. I'm sure they were trying to, and I've read stuff about this. They were trying to invite a whole new audience too. People who maybe didn't already play Diablo, who weren't familiar with it, could see how cool it is.
Yeah.
And I totally get that. I guess when you're like a really hardcore gamer, that's not the news you want to hear. You don't want to hear, hey, we made something for everybody else. You want to hear, hey, we made something just for you.
Yeah.
I think that's where some of the pushback. I don't think the pushback was fair, honestly. To me, it's like, Star Wars movie fans shouldn't get mad that they're making a TV series. Like there's room in your life for both, and And like using that as an example, like The Mandalorian is kind of the Star Wars property a lot of people have been waiting for. You know,
and I've heard good things about it.
It's
and
great.
People who watch it, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think they did a fantastic job. I think it feels like the original world that we all loved from the original trilogy.
Oh yeah.
It just feels very, you know, spaghetti western set in a sci-fi universe. It's
with some parts of it that are fun too, and like
I know
that
sense of humor. I mean, the original films had, you know, what the A New Hope and Empire, you know, and Return. They had like a really great sense of humor to them. I'm not saying anything negative about the other films. I'm just saying, you know, I grew up with those movies. Those were my formative Spielbergian Lucas years.
And I tend to do that anyway. I agree with you. Those classics are sometimes hard to beat, especially where George Lucas was so directly involved with those films. That was his passion. You get that passion. And that's something that I appreciate as an indie creator. And with my brothers over at Cornerstone Creative Studios, you know, we like that creative freedom, that ability to realize that vision, and we have that across the board, which is beautiful. And we're all fans of comics, so we understand it, and we've loved it for a long time. And so you get that, and same with Star Trek. Like, I'm a Star Trek fan, and I love the original series. I watched it with my father, and it almost seems like that original cast is very hard to duplicate because they were just they were so good, and they were good together. And I like Star Trek because of the philosophy to it as well, and you get that a lot in the original series. Basically, even though it's a sci-fi, you get that what do they call it? You get that philosophy and human nature, and even
it's
though
like
they're aliens.
Bernie Sanders sci-fi. It's a very socialistic view of the future, and I think it worked. I mean, it was just a great way, a great spin on science fiction, because especially in Gene Roddenberry's time, there was so much dark, sort of negative science fiction. It was all kind of about the dystopic future that we could be facing, and along he comes with this sort of grand vision of a unified federation. It's just really, really cool stuff. And I it's interesting to use that to segue to writing. It's actually something that I really look for in projects is where can I find a genre that I'm in love with, or an element of that genre, and how can I take it in a different direction? What can I do with it that hasn't been done? Or how can I celebrate what has been done? You know, Eureka was that for me. The whole idea behind Eureka was just to do a love letter to science fiction every week. And it was supposed to be a love letter to that like cheesy 1950s brand of sci-fi. You know, have fun with it, have some laughs with it, you know, have a good time. I think the original sort of catchphrase for us was Northern Exposure meets the X-Files.
Oh yeah, I remember Northern Exposure. It was a very cool series. I enjoyed it, and I'm in from an area like that. We actually have moose that live here. You know, in the opening. Yeah, I remember that. And then, what was it? You were saying it's Northern Exposure meets
at the time
X-Files.
Meet the X-Files, because we wanted to. That was like the only show you could hold up and go, look. You know, people want weird supernatural stuff. They want weird paranormal activities. In their soup, and
yes, we do.
And also for me too, it was sort of like the producer in me looked at the Sci-Fi Channel and thought, hey, there's a whole audience out there that you guys aren't reaching, because you're talking to guys like me, you're talking to hardcore sci-fi fans. You know, we're the guys that love Dune, we're the guys that love, you know, you feed us sci-fi and we're all over it. But there's a lot of people who that kind of science fiction was alienating to them. You know, even something like Battlestar Galactica was alienating to them because it was so hardcore sci-fi. It was robots and spaceships and space opera and everything I love, but not necessarily everything a broader audience loves. And I remember saying to them, like, I want to build a show that will wake people up to a love of science fiction, even though they may not have that right now. They may not realize. I think Walking Dead did that in a huge way for people who never in a million years thought they'd watch a zombie movie or a zombie TV show. Game of Thrones did that for fantasy. Like Game of Thrones, if it was only appealing to fantasy fans, it wouldn't be the genre, you know, the massive genre hit that it is. I think to everyone.
Yes, I agree. And you know what's funny? You mentioned Game of Thrones, and I'm a huge fan of fantasy as well. I think you and I have similar. I love science fiction as well, but I love fantasy. And George Martin is a very talented writer. I'm going to be honest right now and reveal it to everybody. It may be a shocker. I've never seen an episode of Game of Thrones, but I read the entire series. I read the entire book series. Such a brilliant writer, so good. I thought he was just fantastic. It was so immersive. The story was great. The characters were great. His descriptions and such a good book.
I think they did a great job. I mean, there's hardcore fans that will disagree with me. I think they did a great job of translating the books. You know, it's like anything. Like the Lord of the Rings, the hardcore Lord of the Rings fans, a lot of them hate the Peter Jackson movies. You know, but I mean, look, people don't like change. I mean, look, Hellboy is a great example. A lot of people hated Hellboy. The critics hated Hellboy. No one wanted to see a version that wasn't Guillermo del Toro's. And I was just a big fan of the comics, and I would have loved to have seen a third Guillermo movie. It just wasn't ever going to happen, you know.
And I hear you there. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, with the internet, it's different than it used to be because everybody is able, you know, everybody all at once is able to have this opinion. And like you said, there are some people who don't like change, but also the process as well. Like the studio, it's not just one person's responsibility. There's hundreds of people that are involved in making these films and these adaptations. And there's a lot of decisions that are out of the hands of certain staff and writers. There's groups, there's boards that make decisions based on it. And so it doesn't always go their way. I mean, you know,
well, and the finished product isn't always where you began either. Like, you know, especially in film, you know, the adaptation process goes through so many fingers, so many hands. I mean, there were multiple writers on that script that it's never going to be your original vision. And sometimes it's better than your original vision. Sometimes it's worse than your original vision. And it's still even my opinion on the movie is just my opinion. You know, I actually had a ton of fun with it. I thought the movie was a blast. It wasn't what I wrote. You know, my script is a lot different than what ended up on the screen. But there's a lot of what ended up on the screen that I thought was a lot of fun. And I kind of feel that way about most movies. I mean, a lot of movies I go back and, especially when they're a movie I love, I go back and try to find the scripts and read them and see what kind of changes they went through. And it's just, you know, it's different for different folks. Sometimes it's an auteur. One of the reasons I love television is in television as a showrunner, I become the arbiter. I become the last word. And you still have to change things because of the nature of production. But when I do TV, at least the show is a lot closer to what I wanted it to be or how I saw it in my head, for better or for worse, you know. But when it's your career, you know, you and your vision and your story and your characters, you kind of want to have a bit of control over that, you know. And if you want to have that in movies, you have to be a director.
And that's the thing, you know, you have this vision as a creator and, you know, like I said, there's a lot of people that are involved in that process. And the same thing happened with Snyder, where he did Justice League, which was highly anticipated as well, just like Hellboy. And people are demanding the Snyder cut because what the studio decided ultimately was different than the vision that he originally had. And there were parts that were left out and things. So, you know, those things, people need to understand that that's happening when you're working professionally. You know, it's not like you write it and they're going to let you you're not taking charge of the entire project. You're a part of a team. And so, you know, that's showbiz. That's what it is.
You're dealing with fandom. And the problem, you know, fandom, by very definition, we're fanatical about these things we love. And so we, of course, want to see the version that we imagined in our heads. So when I see Dune, you know, I have a version of Dune that's from the books. That's what I want to see up on screen. You know, you don't always get that. You know, all these Star Wars people, you know, a lot of them still want to see Star Wars done the way it was when Lucas was doing it. They want to see Empire Strikes Back again and again and again and again. And they're not necessarily going to get that. The different people are bringing their interpretation to the thing that they love. It's pretty rare.
I think for me. No, I agree with you on that. I think for me, I would like to see George Lucas have even more involvement in the newer films, but you know, maybe they weren't for me. You know, they weren't. We watched some of them, and most of them, there were parts of the films that I liked, but you know, it could be that, or maybe just the original series just rung true with me, and you know what I mean. That's going to happen. You're going to have different tastes. So,
well, and for me, like, you know, I'm a lot older than you are. I'm so forgiving when it comes to genre stuff because I didn't have any of that growing up. Like, you know, Star Wars was like one of the first times sci-fi didn't have a tinfoil robot walking around, you know, like there, other than like the rare occasions of kind of brilliant, like Forbidden Planet and things like that. Like a lot of science fiction was really crappy, and a lot mainly because there just weren't the techniques created yet to make it any better. You could take a great, a lot of them had great scripts and great stories, but they just couldn't make a great robot or a great spaceship. And then along comes Lucas and basically invented, he's like Cameron in that way. He invents technology to keep up with his vision. And that just wasn't available when I was a kid. We joke about that around here all the time with my girls. My girls get bored with something, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Like, we didn't have anything like that I didn't have X-Files when I was a kid. I didn't have, Harry Potter. My God, we didn't have anything close to that. Fantasy was a 4-letter word when I was a kid. Like the best thing we ever got was Excalibur. I mean, Excalibur was kind of like the Star Wars of fantasy back then. Like no one had ever done anything like that before. So there's a part of me that is very forgiving with genre pictures. It just did. I can watch a movie that might be ostensibly bad, but I'll find the things in it that I love, especially if it's werewolves, vampires, zombies, sharks, you name it, like robots. I just love that stuff. Anything that's escapist fare, I'm extremely forgiving on. Because that's what I do primarily as a writer. I've had opportunities. I had an opportunity to come and take over CSI back in the day, or and other opportunities on other shows. And I was just like, that's not my bag. My wife hates it.
She wanted you to take the job, and
we'd have 12 houses in Paris right now, but I can't. You can't do this for the money because it kills you if you do. You got to do it for your passion. You got to. Hopefully they'll meet. Hopefully they, hopefully the commerce and the creative collide. But you have to work on stuff that you love, and find because that's how you find your voice.
I agree with you on that completely, and I don't do things that I don't personally enjoy. And with a lot of the things that I work on, I try to make it my own because it's going to have that heart in it. While I'm starting, I mean, I've written stuff that's that's for other people that was created from other people's ideas. But I always do an extensive Q&A to try to stay close to it, and then use my instincts to try to round it out and make it better. And so I can totally appreciate that. And I also wanted to say too, Andrew, that I appreciate you, and I think you showed a lot of character too, mentioning the Hellboy movie that you wrote last year. You had a lot of passion for it. You were honest, and you also brought up you brought up the fact that critics were not really on board with it, and there were a lot of fans that weren't on board with it, but you were okay with it. You accepted it, and accepted that you enjoyed what you created. It may not have ended up that. No, I appreciate that. That shows a lot of character in your job to be able to do that, and that's probably why you're doing what you do. People probably enjoy working with you, and you understand the process, and
And don't get me wrong, you have to. I mean, when someone gives you a bad critique, you have to listen, because there's going to be nuggets of wisdom in there, even if they literally just hated it because, and there were reasons to not like it, and a lot of those reasons were legitimate. But even if they just hated it because it wasn't Guillermo, you got to listen to that. You got to kind of see, well, what did Guillermo do that everyone fell in love with? Because you learn from those things.
I agree with that.
Guillermo's, he's one of my favorite directors. The guy's the genius. He's right up there with Spielberg and Hitchcock and
he's talented.
Howard Hawks. I mean, like, he's one of those Quentin Tarantino's of the world. He's just one of those guys that he has followed his passion. He's Frankenstein making his monster over and over and over again, because he's got these demons inside him that he's trying to exorcise. And he's got these stories that he wants the world to hear, because he wants the world to fall in love with these monsters the same way he did. And you can't not admire that about someone. And to have the courage to put that much of yourself out there. And that's a big part of writing. And a lot of people don't realize that. And it's hard for writers to admit it, because as writers, we tend to be very introverted, a lot of times malcontented human beings. And we're not used to, like, bearing our souls the way actors do. And the way you have to kind of acting is like one of the hardest jobs in the world, because you have to go out there and you have to make it really work. And a lot of people don't understand this. You have to, like, rip your chest open and let the world see what's inside you. That's what makes a great actor. And a lot of people don't realize that. They think actors are just, sipping lattes, and when someone yells action, they go out there and read their lines, which some actors do, but those are the bad actors. Good actors are bearing their souls on screen, on stage, you name it. And
That's right, and they immerse themselves into it.
Yeah, writers have the luxury of getting to do all that in private. That's a luxury for us. And so when the critics come out and kind of they can tear that apart, you don't have to sit there and face that. You're not standing on stage while that happens. You're not getting the boos, and it's so I applaud actors for their ability to do that, and for writers it's something that, I mean, I've kind of lost my train of thought, but something to keep in mind is that we do get the luxury of like I said, doing all that in private. And
no, that was a point. You came back to it. I agree, and I had something to add to it as well. Is that with writing, I am very much an introvert, and I've been working over the last 8 years with my friends over at Cornerstone. They took me in and showed me the ropes, and so this kind of thing is harder for me, the social side of it, because I'm used to that. I live in an area that's not very populated, and so big crowds as well are not really my thing. So I have to force this part of it. But these are things that I enjoy doing and I want to be able to do. It's just like an inner kind of voice that just tells you, just go back to your dungeon, Ryan, get back in your hole. You know what I mean? And so, but I like people. I just the crowds, and there's like anxieties with it. And like you said with writers too, it's people are judging you all the time. So it's one of those things that's like, you have to have a leap of faith. You just have to go for it.
That actually was my point, is that we have to bear our soul on the page. So we have to bring something real, even when you're doing, a monster movie or a robot fight movie, whatever it might be. You still got to bring yourself to that page, and you got to write about something real. You have to, like, writing is ultimately an illumination of character. And you're using that unique lens of genre, science fiction, horror, comic book, heroism, whatever it may be. You're using that as the lens to tell that story. That just becomes like the filter through which your story is illuminated and your characters are illuminated. And the only way to make people fall in love with what you're doing it's the same way you make your partner in life fall in love with you. You open yourself up. You have to. And that's a lesson I always try to teach writers is, you can write all the cool dialogue and all the quirky Tarantino-esque stuff all day long, but you got to understand, Tarantino is writing from the heart. He's writing stuff that really matters to him. He's showing you a piece of his past, a piece of his soul, a piece of his heart. He's showing you these things because of how much they mean to him and how much they've created who he is. And the more he shows you, the more he opens himself up, the more honest he is about it, the better the movie is.
And he does some very cool things too. He's one of my favorite directors. Like, I mean, Reservoir Dogs was such a cool concept to how it went in the life in a short period of time of this heist that went bad. And then you get like From Dusk Till Dawn, you go into like a vampire movie that's a straight monster. It was very, very cool. I mean, it was a lot of fun. And the concept of that as well was very interesting. And then being holed up in a bar and having to fight off a vampire, a vampire swarm.
What's interesting,
Kill Bill.
Yeah, Kill Bill. I'm going to use Reservoir Dogs as a really great. Let's pick that apart for a second, because Reservoir Dogs is the perfect example of, hey, I loved these like crime movies, these 80s, 70s crime movies, mostly 70s, I guess, and 60s. I love that whole noir, criminal vibe, cops and robbers, you name it. That's what it is on the surface, and it's a really interesting version of that story. It's got all the great twists and turns and tweaks of dialogue. But deeper than that, it's the story about betrayal, because you have the Harvey Keitel character and the Tim Roth character. One's a cop, one's a criminal. And ultimately, it's kind of a bit of a love story there. That movie is a love story between those two guys, and how the one guy's trying to save his friend has no idea that he's been betrayed until the end of the movie. And so you've got this really amazing character story driven in there, but even deeper than that. And this is where I talk about, Tarantino opening himself up. Here's a guy that has fallen in love with these genres. And if you only look at the genre through a certain lens, and people have accused him of this, all they'll see is, oh, he loves violence. He loves all these Hong Kong cop show movies. He just loves guys with guns and sex and drugs, and he loves using the N-word or whatever you want to say about him. And if you look at Reservoir Dogs at its heart is that conflict. It's the conflict between, well, am I a cop or am I a criminal because I love these things? And these are the stories I want to tell. So which one of these characters am I? Am I Tim Roth, who when you see Tim Roth through a certain light, it's like, well, he's the hero of the story because he's the cop in among all these criminals and he's trying to do the right thing and he's risking his life and he's risking everything to in the name of justice, whatever you want to call it. But then you have Harvey Keitel and some of these other characters who, well, maybe they're not the bad guys of that piece because Harvey Keitel, he's just doing his job. He cares about this guy. Like, is Tim Roth a good guy or a bad guy? If you're a crook, he's a bad guy. If you're a cop, he's a good guy. So it's really interesting to see him use characters like that to kind of express his own duality, his own sort of like, should I feel guilty for loving the movies I love? Should I feel guilty that I love to watch on-screen violence? Because I do. I love a good fight scene. I love a good.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely. That action is great. And I like how you brought that up too, Andrew, because I think I get excited as well in a film when they're able to blur those lines. Essentially, he humanized criminals. He took these criminals, took us into the life of these backstabbing criminals, essentially, and humanized them and got into their emotions and drew you in with that and then flipped it with a twist at the end. You know what I mean? And so he was very good at storytelling and setting that all up, and it was a lot of fun. And I thought Kill Bill was written. I mean, that was a martial arts masterpiece, really, and there was a lot that was fun in it as well. But the narrative was so poetic, and I just thought it was a beautiful film. And I mean, some people would look at it if you saw like one of the fight scenes where the the violence was so animated that it was just silly.
Oh, but the crazy 88 scene, yeah.
Yeah, like it was so crazy. If you saw something like that, you'd be like, what am I watching? This is craziness. That was more or less like an homage, though, to like before that time when the special effects were bad. In a way, he wanted to do something to make it fun, and I think he succeeded. But ultimately, it was a beautiful film. It was heart-wrenching at the end, and it was a great story.
People will probably rage against me on this, but what a great female empowerment. I mean, Quentin Tarantino gets accused of not having strong female characters. I don't see where that comes from because between Kill Bill and Jackie Brown, my God.
Yeah, don't do it unnecessarily, but God damn it, Andrew, I'm with you on that one. She was Uma Thurman was a badass in that film, and she was a great female lead. Great example. She killed that role, and there was nothing fake about that. I mean, her acting was fantastic, and that was a great character, and she nailed it. Like, I'm with you on that. Yeah, I think that was good.
The heart of the movie is, what would a mother do for her daughter?
Yeah, that's right.
The flip side of that would be a movie like Revenant, where you have the Leo DiCaprio character basically wants to avenge the death of his son. He wouldn't have gone through all that if it was just him. I mean, in real life, he did. Like in real life, Howard Glass went through all of that because he was fucking pissed off. But I like in the movie it became like, what would you do for love? What would you do for the person you loved?
That's right.
They're both really great examples of revenge films. I will say
it was a good revenge film. At the end too.
I think Kill Bill is in some ways the superior revenge film, and it's only because I love both of them. Don't get me wrong, but it's only because I have this own personal philosophy about revenge films only truly work when they're not ultimately about revenge. And I think, and not that either of them are, but I feel like Kill Bill has such a straightforward redemption aspect to it for that character, and that turn she makes where she forgives Bill, and she, even though she still kills him, she forgives him, and he forgives her, and she gets her daughter, and she goes on to become a mother. I think that's amazing. It's an amazing movie.
I agree with you on that, and that gave me an idea as well. This has been great talking with you, Andrew. It gave me a new perspective on the ending. Is that was a great revenge film, and it was so good that at the end you didn't care that she was getting her revenge. It was almost
No.
it almost saddened you that she finally was able to get her revenge, even though Bill was so despicable. Like, because of the whole story and the ending, everything that had built up to that climax and that last moment, you almost were sad to see this asshole die. You know, because the whole thing, the finality of it was not satisfying.
I would have been just as satisfied if she had just walked away from her revenge with her daughter. You know, like that's how you know the movie works, when you would have accepted a different ending. You know, as long as she got her kid, I would have been fine with it.
Yeah, and then the thing is he had to end it that way because
it's so perfect.
Yeah, they had to do that because of the 5-finger death punch maneuver there. I can't remember exactly what it's called. It's been a little while, but that played into the story so much, and that was a fitting end to it. If you were going to kill that character off.
In the fact, I mean, and what's so fitting about it is that Bill, the one thing Bill couldn't see in her was the fact that the teacher, her teacher, Bill's mentor, would never have taught him the palm strike.
That's right.
Her.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
She's better than Bill, and because of that, she survives, and Bill has to die. And I think that's just amazing because it's who she is as a character. She's just
not only did she get her revenge, but she also, it was like a physical. She killed him, but also mentally, before he died, he realized that she was, in fact, even though he thought he was superior to her as an adversary, he realized that she was better than him as well. So that was beautiful.
His ego could never allow him to see past that. There's even a line about when he tells her, "You're my favorite person," because she says, "I'm just a bad person," and he tells her he's your favorite. Even in the end, he still only sees the world through his perspective, you know, because that's who he is. And again, when you talk about female empowerment, Bill is kind of this ultimate extension of toxic masculinity. Even though he's not a bro, even though he's not, and I'm not Mr. Giant Feminist, but I do have 2 daughters, so I see.
Right, so you have to see it and deal with it, right?
Yeah, and I look for these things in storytelling because I think traditionally women haven't had a voice in genre the way they should, and that it's not as simple as just, you know, you see a lot of these projects where someone just gender flips the hero. They're like, well, let's just cast a woman instead of a man. That's not telling a woman's story. That's not a female perspective. You like. Kill Bill's a great example of, I think, someone actually trying to provide a female perspective to a revenge story, and showing through Bill that even in the face of that, Bill can't see he can't see past his own toxic masculinity because it's still his ego. His ego is what drives him, and his inability to see past that becomes his downfall. Because if he were capable of seeing past that, he would know that Pai Mei would have taught her that, and he would have been prepared for it.
I agree with you completely on that too as well. I mean, with storytelling, you know, doing something, it's not so much even what you do as how you do it. So like you said, I mean, gender flipping or doing these things just for the sake of doing them, or which ultimately comes down to somebody having an agenda with their work, whether it's a social agenda or, you know, obviously like these things, social agendas or views and politics have found their way into entertainment because people express themselves with them, but just injecting it into the story and not having it be an organic part of the story has been a problem with lots of properties. We see that all the time, and I think you mentioning it just shows that it has been prominent in entertainment. It's something that we definitely have to look at. It needs to be with passion. It needs to be something that's put there for a reason. Everything has to be done for a reason, and people aren't stupid, you know. But that's like just throwing something in there and not putting that time in, whether it was for a lazy reason or you know, not focusing on your work. Like, people are watching it. People have the internet today, and they can read. They see they can experience more entertainment than ever before, and they don't want to be duped, and they go expecting to be entertained in one way or another, and they don't want to see those things. And especially when it's done to characters that they care about, you know, they go because they want to see these characters portrayed. You know, I mean, you know, it's hard because, you know, you don't want to go in expecting everything to be perfect and the same you know, it's all right to have some differences, but ultimately they don't want something done badly, you know, if it's done terribly.
You said something really important there, which is audiences are not stupid. And I think Hollywood, people in Hollywood that don't really know what they're doing, and there's plenty of them, you know, there's plenty of people that do. they do have a tendency to kind of to get jaded and to kind of think that audiences need to be talked down to and they're not smart. And that's a huge mistake because audiences are incredibly sophisticated.
Oh, preach it.
You don't have to have a 160 IQ to understand all the aspects of story. I think that's kind of a sort of grossly liberal point of view. I'm a massive liberal. Don't get me wrong. I'm left of Gandhi because I'm so like live and let live. But I hate this kind of like toxic liberalism where it's like, oh, because a guy works in an auto mechanic shop, he can't understand Tolstoy. It's bullshit. Of course, like, it takes all kinds. It takes a village to run this world. And I do think Hollywood forgets that sometimes and talks down to the audience and feels like everything needs to be explained. The audience wants mystery. They want mystery is what drives us. I think you and I had this conversation the other day.
Yeah, we did on the phone.
Yeah,
and
like
it's a good conversation. Go, because you're on the money. Keep going.
Well, I use the metaphor of magic. Like you watch a magic show, you want to be intrigued. You want to be surprised. You don't want to see where it's going. You don't want to guess how the trick is done. You want to be blown away by it because it's that mystery that keeps you interested. Like no one's impressed by the secret. No one cares about the secret. Once you give up the secret, you've lost their attention. And I think in some movies, TV shows, you name it, comics, it's everywhere. Being too expository, explaining too much can kill a story because that's not how life works. It's not how the real world is. You don't always have like this Larry the Explainer popping his head up to tell you what's going on. In fact, recently I watched this version of a Stephen King adaptation called The Outsider. And it was great. I mean, if you guys haven't seen it out there, everyone watching, go watch The Outsider. It's a terrific example of, the cast and the acting in it is superb. The writing is superb. But they don't explain shit. They let you wonder the entire time what these people are up against. And I won't give anything away. But even at the end, you don't get an explanation. You leave the series not really knowing. It's not quite as opaque as, say, True Blood. I mean, sorry, not True Blood. True Detective. True Detective, I thought. But again, I thought True Detective was great. You had this incredible mystery, and you didn't get all the answers at the end because those cops didn't get all the answers. Why should we have answers when the characters don't? You're left with mystery. It gives you something to talk about after the lights go up and the curtain goes down. And I love that. That's what I want out of entertainment. I want to have discussions. It's like reading a great poem. Poems are open to interpretation. You want to, the reason there are book clubs is because you want to sit around with people and talk about the chapter you read and have different opinions. And everyone brings their own sort of their own lives and experiences to that experience, to that collective experience. And that's important because if you're not letting the audience participate in your story, if you're not making it sticky to them, if you're not giving them the opportunity to bring their imagination to the moments that you're giving them, and instead you're just treating it like a roller coaster ride where you're on a track and the track goes from point A to point B, it has a few thrills along the way, and then it stops, that's not good writing. That's not good storytelling. Good storytelling should make it an interactive experience with its audience.
I agree with that, and I think you were right on target, Andrew, talking about that, and as well talking about people in Hollywood having a chip on the shoulder and talking down to the fans and to the audience and preaching to them through their work and not having humility when they get feedback for it, but also their egos get involved as well, and I think that's been damaging to entertainment as well. We're on such a public stage, like not me personally, I'm still trying to punch through, but for people who have a career that working in mainstream, you're on the world stage, everybody's looking at you, and some people take it with humility and some people don't. Some people have a chip on their shoulder, they have an ego, and sometimes it can affect their decisions, I imagine, where it's a collaborative art form.
And by the way, we all have egos. You have to have an ego to do this job.
Yeah, you have to have some.
You have to have a healthy ego. You have to understand that you're unlike
thick skin.
Yeah, you have to have thick skin, absolutely. You have to have a healthy ego because you have to support your vision. You have to truly believe that you're the best person to tell this story. And that's, that goes with it.
Confidence. Yeah. I hear you.
Confidence, yeah. And there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance. And that's the line you don't want to cross. And I also think the main thing I think for storytellers to remember, especially when you're a writer and you're working in Hollywood, is that it is a collaborative industry. Like, you're not going to be the final say. I don't even care if you're the director. You're still not the final say. There's so few, unless you're like a massive auteur. And by the way, even if you're Tarantino, you don't get the final say, because the final say is sitting in the theater watching your movie. That's really the final say. If they're not entertained, if they didn't like your story, you're screwed.
And you're going to hear about it too. Like I said, with the internet, you're on the world stage. I mean, if they don't enjoy it, it's not going to be like you go and get the box office numbers like it used to be, before the days of the internet. I mean, now you're going to see it's going to be the next day. It's going to be everywhere.
And it doesn't have to be enjoyment, because sometimes an experience is not enjoyable, but it's an amazing experience. And I'll use Hereditary as an example. I did not enjoy the movie Hereditary, but I've seen it like 6 times. It's an amazing film. Because it's an experience, and it's such a great story that it's not meant to be enjoyed. It's meant to kind of be survived. I think there's definitely a place for movies like that. Some movies are kind of designed to challenge you, and it's not so much about entertaining as it is about challenging you as the audience. Like any great piece of artwork should either entertain or challenge or do a little of both. God, there was another movie, and I'm forgetting the name of it.
For me, you reminded, while you think of it, I was reminded instantly when you said that about a movie that I didn't enjoy, but that was an experience for me. And this is probably going to seem really random, but I don't know why this popped up when you mentioned it. Was the movie Seven with was a movie that almost you can't really enjoy because it was so grotesque, and it was such the way the film was, because they never really got any traction in the case, and really when it got to the end, it was just a tragedy, like a terrible tragedy, and essentially the bad guy won and then lost his life, and then it was, and so like maybe that's one of those films, because it's an unforgettable movie, and it was also the entire movie was just meant to shock and horrify you all the way to the end, and then at the end just give you a twist that was much worse. And really
I'm glad you brought it up, because you said something the other night on the phone, and I wanted to bring this aspect up of the movie Seven. And you weren't talking about Seven, but it made me think of it. There's one thing in that movie, literally one thing that I would change. And talk about ego.
No, go ahead, rip it. Tell me, because I'm interested.
I felt like it's the whole "what's in the box" moment. And I'm sorry if there's people out there who haven't seen Seven, but it's way past your expiration date. And obviously we all know now, or you should know now, that Gwyneth Paltrow's head's in that box. And when he's yelling, "What's in the box? What's in the box?" and you open the box and he sees Gwyneth Paltrow's head, and that makes him turn into Wrath and complete the Kevin Spacey's character's journey. When he kills Kevin Spacey, he becomes Wrath. There was a part of me that wishes they had just done that scene slightly differently, so that Morgan Freeman was still coming to them with the box, and he figured out what's in the box and killed Kevin Spacey before Morgan Freeman got to him. And then the box was empty. And then Gwyneth Paltrow's still alive, still being held somewhere or whatever. But that Spacey tricked him. Because really, if someone murdered the person you loved and she was pregnant with your child, that's not wrath. That's righteous indignation. Wrath is because I have the ego to think I figured you out, and I think you did this terrible thing to me, and now I'm going to kill you without proof. That's wrath. And if he had done that to Spacey, even though that box was empty when Morgan Freeman got up there, I mean, you just shot a guy in the head because of what you thought, and because he manipulated you that hardcore. It would have made Kevin Spacey's character that much more brilliant as a psychopath, and I think would have like really driven the concept of the movie home just a touch more. But again, I'm not Andrew Kevin Walker, and I'm certainly not David Fincher. So that's just my own little, stupid opinion.
Yeah, there was a finality when she was dead. I mean, in that other scenario, he would have been separated and had to live with it. He would have been, you know what I mean? He would have been jailed for it. The fact, and with his wife still alive.
Yeah, he absolutely would have done the wrong thing. Like, I can argue if you killed a guy who took your wife's head off, you didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, they expected something like that and that vicious, and especially with all the emotion they had in the case. I mean, they built that emotion up and got to that point, and he'd, essentially been fucking with them the entire time. And then that happens, and then you killed my pregnant wife. Like,
manipulating Brad Pitt.
I wouldn't have thought about it even as much as he did. Honestly, I would have popped him right on the spot as soon as I looked in there. There wouldn't have been that much dramatic buildup in my, know.
Fuck the gun. I would have done.
I would have fucking ended him right on the spot. So yeah, for sure, man. That was an intense movie. Yeah,
it's an amazing film. Did that
one
win?
Of the greats?
I can't remember.
I wouldn't doubt it. I'd have to look back. I mean, if it didn't.
Dark at the time, who knows? But
all-star cast, and also the other thing too is it was definitely Oscar worthy if you look at the quality of how it came together and the story itself. But maybe it was one of the. I'd have to look back because maybe it was one of those years where there were a lot of great films that came out and potentially could have gotten lost with some other films that somehow edged them out or something. But it was a very good film.
There was another film kind of like that it kind of missed its boat right at the end. That had a really amazing script done before that didn't get made. I Am Legend, the Will Smith movie, I Am Legend.
Oh, that was another. I like that movie too. That was good.
It's a fun movie, but there was a draft of it written by Mark Protasevich way back in the day, long before the movie ever got made. And they didn't use his draft. But what I missed from the Will Smith movie was at the end of I Am Legend, and this was really important in the Protasevich draft, there was that notion that the moment when the Will Smith character, the main character, realizes the world has changed and it's no longer the world he's from anymore, and that he's become the boogeyman. He's the one who's in the wrong. He's been going out every night killing these vampires, and there's that moment in the script when he realizes in their world, he's the monster that they talk about, that they warn their children about. Don't go out during the daylight. Don't lock your doors. And so this whole movie, he was in the wrong. That he's the one who's refused to evolve to this new world. And to me, and that was the whole point of the original novel, the Matheson novel, was I Am Legend. I'm the boogeyman. I'm the one that I'm the creature that stalks the night, because the world's different now. That in a world full of vampires, the Daywalker is the true nightmare. And I really he did it so well in the Protasevich draft.
Oh, that's interesting, because all I saw was the Will Smith iteration. I didn't read the film, but that's very interesting. Another example of how the novel gets adapted when you go to film to maybe appeal to the masses. And, it's not always right when they make that decision, but somebody made that decision and some people agreed with it.
I mean, I still love that movie, and people will argue left and right on it. Same with World War Z. There's people who hate World War Z because it's not like the books. And then there's people who love World War Z. I love the Max Brooks book, and I loved the movie. I think they did a great job with that movie. But again, like I said before, if it's genre, I'm infinitely forgiving with genre as long as I'm not the one writing it. I try, but
try to those pitfalls. I try to avoid something like that. I think
as I can. My kids love my daughters love World War Z. They watch it ad nauseum.
Oh yeah,
it doesn't. It was a good film. One of them's probably got a crush on Brad Pitt, but
you have to deal with that whole world. See, I have all boys, so it's a totally different world. Yeah, I can't imagine what that's like. That must be torture.
Well, I got excited because I was where was I? I was in Vegas. I went and locked myself away. This was not too long ago. I locked myself away to finish a script. I just needed to get out of the house for a while, and I needed no distractions. And I know that sounds crazy because it's Vegas. That's all Vegas is distractions. But it was just a out of the way place that I could drive to in like 4 hours. 3.5 if you drive like me, and I just checked into a suite there and didn't leave the suite for 7 days. And so it's like my own version of quarantine before there was a quarantine, and just finished the script. And while I was there, my youngest daughter came out to my wife and told my wife, that she was a lesbian. Since then, she's realized that she's not lesbian, she's bisexual. So I had that brief moment in the sun of going, so I've got one daughter that I don't have to deal with boys. I'm so excited.
That's great.
And now it's she stole it from me. Now I have to be careful of everything.
Everything's fair.
Boys,
Oh my God.
It's like, pick a lane. Come on.
Andrew,
But
that's so cool, man. You're probably a fun dad. I'm sure your daughters love you because I mean to be able to joke about that. I mean, if people don't have enough character to laugh at themselves, then what kind of world are we coming to? People take themselves way too seriously. I think nowadays.
way too seriously.
Everybody have an opinion, but geez, man, it's sometimes. I mean, I don't even want to get into it because it gets so crazy sometimes. But you know what I mean.
Your opinion. Have whatever opinion you want. You don't need to think about. I mean, like I said, I'm liberal to the nth degree. Live and let live. If you're not hurting anybody else, I don't care. You can fall in love with a chair. It doesn't matter to me, as long as you're not hurting anybody, or yourself. And I don't understand people who don't think that way. But at the same time, that's not my purview. Like, if you don't want to like certain people, as long as you're not hurting those people, and as long as you're not trying to make a world where those people are hurt. I have your opinion. Think however you want to think. It's okay by me. And I'm a huge supporter of the First Amendment. I mean, you can say, and that's something that's really gone away. Like nowadays, people can say one wrong thing. They make one off-color joke. They make one comment that the internet doesn't believe in, and they get canceled. There's this whole cancel culture. That's ridiculous. That's so against what we should be doing as a society.
Hey. As a guy with like a 50% joke accuracy, like I can totally relate with all that. Right? I miss as much as I hit, so yeah.
And you have to be funny. A really good writer that I know, John Rogers, great comedian. He started out as a physicist, figured out how the world worked, and had no choice but to become a stand-up comic, which I love. And then from his stand-up comic days, ultimately became a screenwriter and a television showrunner. And he said something to me that I'll never forget, and I've used it on many occasions, that comedy takes courage and commitment. That you have to have the courage to piss people off, to say something wrong, you have to be brave and try things that might not work, because sometimes jokes don't land. And then you have to have the commitment to keep going and to do that. And that's what comedy takes. And we've entered this bizarre politically correct universe where everyone's so on their toes. And you hear actors and comedians talking about, there's plenty of old school comedians who say they could never do what they do these days because they would be eaten alive because of the off-color brand of their humor and the jokes that they would try. And nowadays everyone's like, oh, it's too soon to joke about that, or you can't joke about that, it's too important. It's like bullshit. You can joke about anything. You should be able to talk about anything.
Yeah, and especially if you're a comedian up on a stage, you go there to pay. You know that they're going to be jokes. I mean, people go up on stage. There's all kinds of stories about people getting, they're tweeting around that they cross the line with a joke, and then all of a sudden a comedian's career is, they're on the barbecue, Yeah. And then what?
It sucks because, by the way, they're making jokes. It's not even like this is necessarily how they think about the world.
Yeah, that's right. It's entertainment. They're
characters. It'd be like canceling. I'm trying to think of a good example. It'd be like canceling an actor who played a villain in a movie. Like, they're acting. He's not really that guy. Kevin Spacey's the wrong example, maybe, but
yeah.
I'm trying to think of
no, that's okay. That's it. Yeah, no. I'm glad you brought that up.
The Lambs is Anthony Hopkins. Anthony Hopkins is really a mass murderer. He's not really a psychopathic killer who eats people. So, like, if it's okay for him to play that in a movie, why isn't it okay for a comedian to play that on stage? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's right. And what's hard about it is that people will make those opinions online. And that's the thing about online. I've been saying that for years, that I love technology and I love how much accessibility we have to each other in the communication. But then you get people who anybody with an internet connection can be a critic. And so they pass those, and they don't, the problem with that is it's not a bad thing that everybody can have an opinion online, but it's the fact that when you're online, a lot of times you don't have to be held accountable for it. You can make a comment and it can be set up in a forum, and who knows especially if there's a lot of popularity in that forum, who knows how many hundreds of people could see that opinion, and they don't know you from a professional, but they see it and people follow it. And it can start those kind of things and maybe even affect the market. And I suspect 100% that it is affecting the market, because it's different than the old system now, where everything, like I said, everything's on the world stage. obviously everybody can have their opinion, but there's just a lot more of it, and also it can be kind of skewed. There's a lot of people that just troll it. They put opinions up just to hammer somebody.
You see it with a lot of movies in Rotten Tomato. Like you're seeing more and more on Rotten Tomato where like a movie may get like a 20-30% critic rating, and then the audience rating is like 70 or 80%.
Now, I heard a rumor that those guys post those and that they haven't actually seen the movie yet. Is there some kind of?
Of course, yeah.
They post that up. They can post that up before even seeing the movie. What percentage of films have they posted and not? I wonder.
I have no idea. I know.
What is that business anyway? You know, that's the way different than Siskel and Ebert. I trust Siskel and Ebert. I don't know about Tomatoes. I don't know those guys.
No, you have, and look, I use Rotten Tomatoes all the time just to inform on a quick decision, but. Yeah. But when it comes to critics too, you just have to remember like it's just one person's opinion, and I know for a fact like I got Hellboy got hammered by like what do you want to call them, fake critics, because of stuff I said about Trump. I said a bunch of anti-Trump stuff, and suddenly there were like a ton of critics that came out of the woodwork. And I'm sure they didn't see the movie. I'm sure a lot of them didn't see the movie, and again, but like I said, they're entitled to have their opinion. What you just said is important too, because the flip side of what I said, and I do believe that the internet, everyone suddenly feels like their opinion is so important, and that you don't get to disagree with their opinion. That's the other thing that happens is people get mad if you disagree. But I also am always reminding my kids of this, reminding other people of this. Like like I said, I'm a big supporter of the freedom of speech, but freedom of speech isn't freedom from consequence. Like just because you can legally say whatever the hell you want to say to a degree, it doesn't mean people aren't going to rip you apart for it. You still have to have some modicum of, I don't know, social awareness. You can't just, That's right. Sure, it's illegal to scream fire in a theater, but you also shouldn't go around touting really unpopular opinions and expect everyone to just leave you alone because you have freedom of speech.
That's right. You're responsible for your speech. And that's interesting that you brought that up, because I've said for many years, especially when you see so much online and people, and it's all right for everybody to have their opinion, but there's a lot of times where I've had to even tell people just my opinion, which is, I think you don't understand what freedom of speech means. Freedom of speech was written by our forefathers, and what they meant was you have the freedom to stand up and make a speech, which means say something important or make an opinion that is relevant to what we're doing. Freedom of speech, just like you said, doesn't mean just shooting off at the mouth and saying any crazy shit that comes to your head. And like people think that's it. Well, I have freedom of speech. Well, no. The forefathers weren't saying you can be a dumbass. And maybe that's just me being judgmental, but like, you know what I mean? The point of it was that freedom, I want to say that that might have been what they meant. Everybody has freedom of speech. They would have like an open hall, and everybody has the right to stand up and make a speech giving their opinion. And it was supposed to be
there to protect the press, to protect the people who needed to speak for the people and to deliver information. But like you said, it was to make sure when you stood up on a pulpit and said a bunch of unpopular stuff that you couldn't be arrested, that you felt like you had the ability to express yourself without fear of the government arresting you, because in England, they'd take you and chop your head off. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get tomatoes thrown at you, because that's why they didn't have to worry about that. It's like, you can get up and say a bunch of unpopular stuff. The crowd may turn on you. The crowd may throw tomatoes at you or whatever. But
and don't get me started on the witch trials. I mean, geez, all you do is you mix up one batch of homemade medicine, and next thing you know, they're tying you up and throw you in the lake.
Well, that's sadly that's what's happening now.
The witch hunts. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
witch hunts, and both sides. I mean, you've got it happening. I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican. There's witch hunts happening on both sides.
And what I wanted to say again too is, I've already said this to you once in the stream, but also I admire the fact that you stood by what you said. Not everybody's going to agree, especially with politics and religion. Personally, I try to stay away from those subjects and keep my own opinions, just because they are very controversial. Everybody has an opinion about them. But today, in this day and age, what I would like to say, if I had to give advice to anybody with political or social opinions, I would say that we have to realize that, I mean, how is this whether you voted for who's in presidency or not, we're going to get another term, and it's a democratic system. It's never going to be perfect. How many times in your lifetime has a president that you didn't vote for get voted into office? And ultimately, we're Americans. We want our president to be successful, even if we don't like him as a person, or if we do like him as a person, or, there's so many different opinions with it. I mean, it's definitely not something to fly off the handle about because of somebody's opinion, make them feel like, make them feel, like obviously everybody's allowed to have their opinion. Let people have that and move on from it.
Don't get angry.
Let people have their strong, even let them have their strong opinions. Just don't,
Absolutely. I love a good argument. I love a good opinionated conversation. It's how I learn things, like have a different viewpoint than me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm fine with that. Like I want to hear that. Don't try to deny me my viewpoint and vice versa. It goes back to the golden rule. Just treat people the way you want to be treated. If the whole world could do that, we'd all be fine. You could have whatever opinions you want. I have to say I have to jump off pretty soon. But are we going to be allowing people to ask questions or?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I wanted to open up a Q&A as well. I think we pretty much went over just about everything that I wanted to ask you personally about your career. And we dug into a lot of method of writing, and this has been great. What I'd like to do is ask everybody, if you have questions for Andrew Cosby, now would be the time. Go ahead and put them in chat. We'll post them up and we'll let him fire them off. I know some people had some questions before if you saved them, but we were just in a conversation. We were just going here. So it happened the other day too when we were on the phone. Like we were back and forth, and it was the same this evening. But if you have a question, put it in now and I'll post it up, and then Andrew will answer it personally.
Yeah.
If you guys have anything. And then, in the meantime, I wanted to mention while people fill in their questions, you started in with Legion M. You said you're working on some projects for them, and I think that's a beautiful company. We were talking before about fans' opinions and entertainment, and I honestly, truly believe that that Legion M and companies like that pay a tribute to the fans and care about what the fans think, and give them a direct link to the creators. I think that's a superior model. That's where we're going. I think that's why Stan Lee endorsed the company, because he felt that was the direction we were going, as a company that cares about what their fans think and wants to give them something entertainment, and kind of has their finger on the pulse of that fan base. And so
you're absolutely right. I do think it is the future of our business. I think fan engagement is huge. I think developing a relationship with your audience, that's a fantastic use of the internet. That's what social media is supposed to be about. And nowadays the ability to reach out and directly connect to the people who appreciate what you do, or even don't appreciate what you do, like that have questions about it. Just that ability to connect more one-on-one with your fan base. I think that is the future, and giving, more importantly, and this is what I love about Legion M, giving fans the ability to get in on the ground floor of the things they love, to actually take part in the genres and in the movies and the TV shows or what have you. I think that's huge, and I think they are a company to watch for. I mean, it's easy for me to say I sit on the board over there, the board of advisors, but I do it because they're fans. I mean, we're all fans. Like I don't write anything that I don't want to, watch in the theater or watch on television. I came from a time where, if a movie was big enough, you had to stand in line for it outside in the rain. So I try not to work on anything that I wouldn't stand in line for, because I think that's what my audience deserves. And I think Legion M shares that. They share that mentality. The owners over there, the executives over there, the good friends of mine, they're great people. And I think they're really building a company of tomorrow. So,
from what I've seen, they've been great. And I see a lot of the same things with Jesse Hansen over at Cornerstone Creative Studios. He's the same way. He cares about all his fans and the people that he works for. He also cares about his staff, all of us. He spent countless hours with me, helping me. He gave me tips to draw, because I wanted to learn how to draw, because a visual medium, even as a writer, a visual medium in some cases is better to work with artists. He spent a lot of time with me, and whatever he couldn't teach me himself, he referred me to people to learn. And so I'm infinitely in debt to this man, and he's been good to all of us across the board like that. So Yeah, so we can relate with that. Yeah, we think Legion M's great, and we've got some questions that filtered in. The guys thought about it here in the chat, and so we got the first one here. Why did you feel the need to found Boom Studios? Oh, we didn't talk a lot about Boom Studios. That's a great question.
Well, let's start off with I was a co-founder. I founded it with another gentleman, and I mean, really, at the time, it was about. We started by wanting to do comics. I came from Malibu Comics, and I was a huge comic book fan. And Malibu Comics had kind of done a creator-owned comic line, and it started to kind of explore other aspects of the medium. And the simple answer was we just wanted to do what the other guy wasn't doing. We started out actually thinking we wouldn't do any superhero stuff, but that kind of went away pretty quick because we wanted our creators to have kind of the freedom to do whatever they wanted. But it was really just for me especially, it was a way to get some of the stories that I wanted to tell, some of the ideas I had that maybe I didn't have time to write, or I didn't think I was the right writer for that particular idea. It was a way to still get those stories out there. It was a way to support other creators in the industry who wanted to do things that maybe didn't match what Marvel and DC wanted to do. It was just a way to kind of like do what we love, because we both loved comics. And at the time, it actually started because I had been approached with a financier that wanted to give me some money to start a production company. And meanwhile, my buddy was selling comics out of his garage, and it kind of hit a wall, and needed some more money. I'd helped him out a couple of times by giving him money, and then by like the third or fourth time he asked me, I said, "Well, look, there's these people that want to give me money." It's actually my in-laws. It was a company owned by my in-laws. One of the guys that worked at the company was the one who originally approached me. And I said, why don't we get serious about this comic thing? Use what I'm doing in film and television, use our collective knowledge of comics, and let's do something so that we can take this company, where it needs to go.
And it's a beautiful house. Honestly, I was talking with my friend. He works over there. Actually, he's done lettering work for me, with me. He's a good friend of mine. We've been talking for years, and I was telling him that I prefer to do my own work because I like to have creative freedom, and so I want to do my own things, and I have my own ideas. I want to create from nothing. But if I had to work for mainstream houses, I'm very picky about where I would like to do that. If it comes down to it, like most of the time, I'd much rather do my own thing and try to punch that through. Like that's exciting for me. But if not, I like DC, and very few titles there that I would be interested in, which is quite a ways away. Nobody's beating down my door to write DC titles now. But Boom Studios, you guys' titles over there look fantastic. The covers are always beautiful, and the artwork, the sequential artwork is gorgeous. The book's very well done. And I love the idea of writing with somebody who takes the book seriously and that the quality is there. You guys' titles are always exciting. I love the crossover ideas. They're always very genius. I've always been very impressed with, and I'm not a shill. I would never say anything unless I truly meant it. And I've said that directly to him. It was Ed did the lettering for me. He was a good friend of mine. I got my start. Ed Dukeshire, yeah, I got my start at Digital Webbing. I was referred there after I published my first novel, and then I saw an ad that Jesse Hansen for Cornerstone Creative Studios posted in there, and then I just kind of followed that down the rabbit hole and found their artwork and kind of fell in with these guys. But
the best thing I can say about Boom, and this is kind of a double-edged sword. My partner and I ultimately had a big falling out, and I mean a big falling out. And I'm no longer at the company. I still have my piece of the company and everything, but I don't deal directly with them at all. Having said that, I still do think they make great comics, and they're an interesting place to take material to, and they're still doing some really cool stuff.
Oh, and very cool that you mentioned that. You know what I mean? I had no idea. I didn't know if you were working. I just knew that you were the co-founder over there. But it is a beautiful house of comics. But you've done great work since then, and I think you're in the right place. I definitely like Legion M and where you're working now, and so I appreciate that, man. Just for you being honest about it. You could have very well just went on with the question, not said it. But it was very cool for you to say that. Hey, my old friend, we started this. We had a falling out. Didn't work out, so I went my way.
Because my falling out with him is partially due because I'm brutally honest, and like
Well,
I can't play the corporate games. I just have to say it like I think, and I don't like when I don't know. I'm very creator driven. I love supporting creators. I love supporting talent. The sad truth of comics is that it's like being a teacher. There's people doing amazing work and they're just not getting paid what they deserve. And I really wish that the industry would evolve to the point where I think it could go. And I'm actually working on some other avenues that deal with this. I just think it's an industry that's really hurting right now, as you well know. It's like it really just needs to evolve. There's ways to tell those stories. There's ways to get those artists paid better. There's ways to get the writers and everyone involved paid better, paid more. It's right now, it's a flawed industry with a flawed distribution system. It's not impossible to fix. In some ways, I'm hoping, that a byproduct of what's happening right now with the pandemic might wake people up to the fact that industry needs to get shaken up a bit and make some changes, because there's just too much talent out there and there's a lot of artists that you'll never hear of because of how the industry works. You're just never going to see their work.
Well, the thing is that mainstream industry wants to, and maybe this isn't a popular opinion, but I'm pretty observant and I see a lot of things. I do a lot of research. I want to know comics inside out. I've studied for years and I've talked with people who've been in comics for a very long time, for multiple decades. And what I think is going on is that something that may not be politically correct, and the people I'm talking about, they talk about Stan Lee, like when he was the editor at Marvel. Some people mention some things about him being mentioned in books, that he didn't write personally, but he edited, and they used Stan Lee. But that wasn't Stan Lee's fault, and that's not a popular opinion. What happened was Marvel made those decisions for him, and they wanted to sell books. What's the best way to sell books? You take the greatest creator of all time, and you put his name in the book, and more people are going to buy the book. And I'm sure those were executive decisions, but that goes along the line of what's going on in mainstream, is that eventually you go down the line and everybody, Stan Lee was beloved by the fan base, and they were upset because he created this legacy for a paycheck and he didn't own any of it. So they gave him cameos, and then there was the deal that happened where he got $1 million a year for the rest of his life. Every year for the rest of his life, and it was almost like an homage, and the fans were happy with that. But Marvel, just as an example for that one thing, Marvel, DC, and those mainstream houses don't want those kind of creators that have that kind of fan power. They want that for them, and I may sound like an asshole for calling them out, but it's true. That's why they cycle out talent. You'll never hear of names grasping hold. Maybe some of the staff artists that they really need, but for the most part, artists are getting cycled out constantly because that keeps the ball in Marvel's court or DC's. I don't think they're doing it so much on purpose, but they're such a big engine that they need to keep it going.
It's
business.
It's. I mean, what you said about Stan Lee is right. I mean, and it makes sense. It's like movie stars. It's why sometimes you see a big name attached to a role where you're like, why is he in this movie? He may not be the best actor for it. He or she may not be the perfect choice, but they have name recognition. And to talk about, the sad imbalance between male and female in this business. There's a brilliant female actors out there who aren't getting the roles because Hollywood has decided their names don't drive box office dollars. All that's changing now. And you're going to see that change in comics too, where I just wanted to get to the point where it's not about the name. It's not about all these other things. It's literally about the story and the characters and the art that you're looking at. And if you don't get a chance to look at it, you can't make that decision. And right now, you want to talk about an unpopular opinion. It's not what's the word I'm looking for? It's not democratic. It's not like the web. Like when you put something up on television, everyone can see it. No one has to put down $3 to look at a TV show and decide whether or not they're going to watch it. But in comics, you do. And the only way you even get a chance to see that book, more than likely, is if it's on the shelf in the comic shop. But the shelf in the comic shops only have so much space. And so, of course, what are they going to put in those shelves? They're going to put Marvel and DC. And then after that, they're going to put some Dark Horse, and they're going to put some Image. And after that, they're going to put some Boom and other books. It's not just about the book itself. And thank God for the internet, because the internet can speak out about creators and books that you might not have otherwise ever heard about. I want to see more of that. I want to see less power in the hands of people who are having to fill shelf space and more power in the hands of the fans who are actually choosing to buy and spend their hard-earned money on that book. And I think the byproduct of that will be more money coming in to the mom and pop bookstores, a bigger audience. And I'm not going to give away the secret sauce, but there's a way to do this that isn't currently being done. And I'm going to make damn sure it is done. I'm going to make damn sure to build that framework so that the next boom comics, the next 21st century and beyond type of creator will have a way to do this and to be monetized and to reach not just a few thousand fans, but millions of fans. That's the goal. And
I think that's great. And I love that idea. I agree that, the mainstream may be going the way of the dinosaur, and it's not its own fault per se, as far as it's mostly because they're just inefficient. And lately, I think that those larger houses, that's been affecting the quality of their comics. Too many cooks spoiling the soup. They need to go in and huddle up and come up with a formula that is going to make this great book, because they have to make this much of a comeback. They have to bring this much back in from it, because they've got this huge house and it's just not efficient. These smaller indie houses and one creator who's got heart and loves what he's doing, instead of this title that's been created by someone decades ago that they don't care about. They've been given this property that that essentially they were too young to even understand the dynamics and what made it great. And you put them in that position, what are you going to get? As opposed to a creator now who's studied and collected for many, many years and knows this genre and loves heroism and wants to make a title. That person's going to give you their heart in that book. And that's going to be that's going to be something you're proud to have in your collection, as opposed to something that's been slapped together as a manufactured thing that you're never going to care about,
You see that happening too. You see, and I hate to say this because it's a necessary evil that happens in comics, where these companies, and Boom included, they end up just making comics that they make great TV shows and great movies, because that's where they have to make their money. They're not necessarily going to make their money from comic book and graphic novel sales, and the more fortunate ones do, but the smaller ones can't. So the smaller ones, of course, and it becomes this horrible cycle of, well, it might be a great comic book idea, but I don't think it's a great movie or TV show idea, which is already ridiculous because you don't know what's going to make a great movie or a TV show. You may think the idea is ridiculous, and that may be the perfect idea for a television show. Fringe development, guys like me, guys who have their own development companies and their own film finance companies, we look for the weird idea. I'm not looking for that thing that feels like Stranger Things, because Stranger Things was something new. I'm looking for something new. And comics is a fantastic place to find that. Yeah. And that's why we need to support the industry, and we need to keep those creators alive and working so that they can make more great stuff. And I'm a film and TV guy. Of course, I want to see things become film and television, but I want to see great comics. I want to read great stories too. Not every book is meant to be a TV show or movie. Not every comic is meant to be a TV show or movie. But sadly, if there isn't something in it that might be, you're asking a comic publisher to spend $100,000 or more on something that they're not going to break even on, and that becomes just an ugly cycle. And there's a way to get rid of that cycle. I can't talk about it, but you're going to have to trust me. I think I figured it out. There's a way to completely get rid of that horrible cycle and be able to support creators and pay them what they're worth, and start treating that industry, or at least that part of the industry, the way my industry is treated, the way film and television is treated. We're like, if you're good at what you do, if you're talented, you get supported financially.
And I have some great ideas as well, and I appreciate that, Andrew. I'd love to talk with you more about this sometime if you have some free time in the future.
Part of it's the conversation I'm having with you with Legion M, because I think they could provide an important component on this. It's not going to be. It might even be something that takes so long that my daughter picks up where I left off. Who knows? But it's doable, and it's gonna. It ultimately, the industry is going to change, and it has to. Doesn't mean comics. Doesn't mean paper comics are going to go away. It doesn't mean digital comics are the answer. It's none of that sort of quick fix stuff.
Right.
We definitely have to change the distribution system. We have to change the retail system. We have to ultimately change what we've always thought comics were and should be, so that they're not just supporting the nostalgia of the project, of the property. They're supporting the actual people who write and draw and color and ink these things so that they can make livings.
And that would be great. And I totally agree. I think that comics are a beautiful storytelling medium, and they're a great foundation for other media. I think that a lot of people in the comic industry now have thought that that people have lots of opinions, but I noticed that the dips in sales and the collapses were directly linked to increases in technology. It's gaming, because because I'm an avid reader and I'm a gamer, both, and my kids are gamers. They play. If Stan Lee walked in, I've said it before, if Stan Lee crawled up out of his grave, God bless him, walked in here and gave my kids a comic book, they'd be respectful of him because I'm their father. They'd be respectful. But as soon as he walked out, they'd put that down. They'd play Fortnite. Kids are spending money on digital content because they're desensitized to a reading experience and those kind of things. But I think that the answer is making quality content that can be translated into those type of media things very easily. Yeah. And that's been what we're doing. It's something that we feel that would make an exciting game or an exciting movie or series.
Right now, that industry is like the record industry. It's like Blockbuster. They're just crossing their fingers and hoping that they don't sink. And that's the wrong way to approach it. Like, the right way to look at Blockbuster is Blockbuster should have had the forethought to become Netflix, and they didn't. They just didn't. They didn't understand what was happening, and they wanted to stay who they were because who they were very successful. One of the arguments I had with my former partner was I was trying to see, 15 miles down the road, and some of the things that we would need to do to make those changes bucked up against some of the success we were having. Success can ultimately be, I know this is going to sound weird, but temporary success can be your ultimate demise. If you're really good at something and because it's working, you refuse to look outside of that model because it's working and it's making you money. There can be nothing more dangerous than that if you're not willing to look outside that box and see where the industry's going and where your consumer's going. And that's what you have to do. That's what you have to do.
And to adapt. That's right. Yeah, and to adapt. And that's a good example.
Survival.
You need to be able to adapt. And a great example of that I'd like to talk about, just as an example, is the comic industry, right? We have a local comic shop, and the guy diversified his shop, right? He bought a bank, and he created this hobby shop. He does coins. He does used video game consoles and games. He does all kinds of collectible cards. He does comics. And he has an online store, and he wheels and deals. So he'll take collectibles and buy them in and then resell them, use the eBay store. He was able to pay off his place even through all the dips. Never had any trouble because he's just a smart guy and was able to work a lot of different things to keep his hobby shop open. Whereas you see a lot of these comic shops that completely relied on the comic industry to keep them afloat. I'm not saying it's a bad thing because it's a great hobby to have, but if you're not able to roll with the punches and diversify and do some different things and get creative, if you rely on the comic industry, like what happened, then you're completely relying on their content. What happens when the content starts to get a little funny and people don't want to buy the books or collect them? I've talked with lots of people who are avid collectors who have been collecting recently from the larger houses because of the quality of the books. They didn't enjoy them for whatever reason. A lot of times it's because of the quality of the books. They weren't interested in the stories. There was a lot of variant cover gimmick things going on. And so the way that affects it is those comic shops are stuck with those copies. If nobody buys them, they weren't able to return them. And so those comic shops are taking those hits right on the chin every time. And they're basically, and they're upset. They're like, hey, we need to do something to save our comic shop and this and that. Well, it's getting passed down to you. The quality of these books, you got to stand up and say something about if people aren't enjoying the books. That's a simple, and people's egos get in the way of that. You're looking at sales numbers. People aren't enjoying the books. They're not buying them. It's kind of thing. So that's the thing. You either got to stand up and say something, or you got to diversify on your own and try to ride it out, or come up with another option. Indie's getting very creative because I think there's a lot of indie guys that just love to tell stories. There's guys like someone recently, Peter Samedi. I've admired him for years. Very smart and savvy. He does the legwork. He's not lazy. He's created his own distribution. Is not reliant on Diamond distribution. He is shipping now. But even through all of this, Nakota, if you want comic books, you can go there and buy them now. And so, so that, and also people are going to crowdfund. Indie's getting sharp and savvy. It's not just because of the pandemic. They're I think that they're also passionate creators. They get to own their own work. That's something. Look at the Image model. You know what I mean? Image has been, the creators love going there because you get to own, you get a chance. I mean, not everybody's going to be Robert Kirkman and find that level of success, but everybody has that opportunity, and you go there and publish, you get to own your own work. And so I do like that model. Our boss has done the same thing. People who create, they own their own work. People who've come in, and so that creates passionate creators. Even if you're not getting that level of success, you believe in your work because you've got that chance to do something great and to pass that on, and it's your work. So you're going to put your heart in it. You're going to want it to be the best it can. It's different than, creators who are smart nowadays, especially with the technology of print on demand. Like, why is somebody who's smart and has a business mind and has the ability, why are they going to go to a large publisher, give away all the rights to their work and write a story for this character that's already been established? I mean, people do it for their careers, to get credentials and to do freelance work. But ultimately, why would you give away that work? If you're that savvy and you're that smart and you're a talented creator and you know it,
that's the problem.
Do your own.
Why you do it is because if someone's paying your bills, you have to. It's
right.
It's a situation we've created in that industry, a situation where people have no choice but to do what they need to do to pay their bills if they want to do their art for their living. But what's happening is comic book artists and writers are like actors getting off the bus in LA. They're not acting. They're waiters who are trying to be actors. And that's what these people are being forced to do. Really talented individuals are having to, dig ditches. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that's not what they want to be doing. And they're not getting to do what they want to do. And instead they're having to split their time, which is just reality. And like everyone's father and grandfather would tell them, well, you're not going to make a living at that, son. You need to have something to fall back on. But the truth is we can fix the industry so that if you're a really talented artist, that's what you'll be doing. That's what you should be doing. Then we can make sure that is what you're doing.
And I can agree with that because as somebody who's a laborer since a very young age, 12, my father, I have to say I've dug a lot of ditches, and it's definitely not something I want to keep doing.
No, I dug a lot of ditches. I worked construction. I worked demo. I don't want to go back. I love
Who would want to do that? Yeah, absolutely.
Now, and at my age, I couldn't do it, but I love what I'm doing now, and I want to keep doing it. I'm going to do it for a long time, but I also love all the other things I'm involved in. Like I'm having an opportunity right now where I'm building a theme park. How many people get to do that? And I didn't start out wanting to build a theme park. I did start out wanting, like in my mind, Walt Disney is like my ultimate hero. And so just getting to play in those waters is huge. And the reason, it's like what you were saying, you have to look out for opportunities. That happened because I had my eye on those opportunities. And you have to be willing to adapt. You have to adapt what you're doing. That actually came out of a project that I had created that I thought I was going to turn into a TV show. And someone found it and they were like, this would be an amazing idea for a theme park. And we don't want to do a TV show. We want to do a theme park. So of course my answer was hell yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
absolutely. That's awesome.
Are there any more questions? I might have to.
Oh, there's. Yeah.
Let's go through them because I have to get going pretty soon.
All right, let's get through them quick here. I pulled that one out. Let's see. Right there. Just having the arts and entertainment. Oh, right here. How about this one? What are you seeing happening in the arts and entertainment field, specifically comics, post COVID-19? We'll try to blow through these questions because there's a lot. We were on the first question. I like talking about it. We'll do it again.
Let's start blowing through them.
Okay.
So this is a fantastic question. I think it's going to change the industry quite a bit. I'm already seeing Like I said earlier, animation is getting a big hand up because of this, because social distancing is still an aspect of that industry more than it is live action production. I think the streamers are going to come out of this very strong. Netflix, Amazon. We're realizing that we now have the technology to have essentially home theaters that are very affordable. You no longer have to be a wealthy 1%er to have a pretty big TV in your home, to have a great sound system. And by the way, there's multiple generations now that don't even want that. They'd rather watch. I've read all sorts of reports showing that there's a number of young people that would rather watch a movie on their cell phone or on their iPad than they would on a TV screen or on a movie screen. So the industry is already heading in that direction. We're only going to see that happen even more now. Streamers are going to get very powerful. You're going to see a lot more content. You're also going to see, you see it with Quibi. You're going to see a difference in how content is done. It's not just going to be the 1 hour show or the 2 hour movie or the 30-minute sitcom. You're going to start seeing 10-minute, 5-minute stories. You're going to see a change and an evolution in the type of content that people are producing. You're going to see a crossover between video games and movies and TV. You're going to see interactive content. All the things we've talked about for so long. VR is going to have a big play. It's not just a bubble that everyone thinks. That VR is going to be huge. That virtual reality is going to hit its peak, and I think actually COVID's even going to help awaken some of that. So that's my simple answer. And with regards to the comic industry, you're already seeing, you can't go to the comic store right now. So your typical way of grabbing that 22-page pamphlet has gone away. And so that shows us right there that industry needs to evolve. There need to be different ways to tell those same stories and to utilize those artists. It can't just be reliant on the 22-page pamphlet, the graphic novel. Those things, if we want those things to live, and I dearly do, I love comic books, I love the paper, I love graphic novels. If we want those to survive, they have to become ancillary products to a different core product, because we have to reach millions and millions of viewers who will then buy graphic novels, as opposed to trying to get them to spend $19 on a graphic novel or $3, $4 on a comic book. It's just a fucked up distribution system, and it doesn't work. It's done.
That's right. And I think what takes away is the cost. I agree with you, and I suspect that it's inefficiency. We were talking about these huge houses that to keep the lights on even, and just to pay the salaries of all these execs and everybody. We've got a very simple model. We've got very creative people that were handpicked, and we all work remotely. At first, it's because of necessity, because obviously we all work day jobs and we're working, or else, they're full-time artists that are working from home and those kind of things. But I mean, there's no overhead. Every penny goes to production money. It's all putting an artist to work or a creator to work. You know what I mean?
The music industry. If you can't get people to buy an album, if that industry died, how the hell are you going to get people to spend money on paper? It's just not going to happen. It's done.
Yeah.
Right, what's the next
thing? Oh, let's do it. Right here. Do you think we will ever see a proper rated R Robocop again? All right, good question.
Dude, if I had anything to say about it, we absolutely would. I would love to see it. I'd love to see, you know what I'd love to see? I'd love to see like the Ex Machina meets, what was that other movie? Upgrade. I'd love to see Ex Machina meets Upgrade version of RoboCop. I want to see Alex Garland's version of RoboCop.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I like how he mentioned that, too. I don't know if he knew or not, but I know Boom publishes RoboCop, has a license for RoboCop. So, yeah.
I didn't even know that.
Oh, that must have been something. Oh, yeah. I thought he knew or something and was asking, but yeah. No, that was a good property, too, as well. What do we got? Write What You Love, Great Philosophy. Andrew writes for us, Andrew Lucas. He does Kinetic, and he also not only does he write Kinetic, but there's another title that he writes, too, something that's in development that we haven't released yet, too. So
I tweeted this not too long ago. The age-old writer adage is write what you know, which is a way of saying don't write about what you don't know. But the truth is, write what you feel. Writing is all about emotion. It's all about, that's what you want to reach people. You want to make people feel something. And this is when I said it doesn't have to be entertainment. It can challenge you. It doesn't matter if you're making them angry or happy, or you're making them laugh, or you're making them cry. As long as you're making them feel something, that's what you write.
That's right. I agree with that. Absolutely. I prefer to create things that, honestly, I like to have creative freedom. I love that. There's nothing more. The first time I created something in a written form and saw it visually created and saw it essentially come to life, I was hooked. I realized there's nothing else I ever want to do.
Yeah, nothing compares to seeing others say your words coming out of their mouths, seeing your words, printed on the comic book page. It's amazing. It's amazing.
This has been a great experience. These guys are so talented, and to be able to see something that was essentially just a whisper of an idea, and then eventually develop it, and then see it become something and be a developed story. I don't want to do anything else the rest of my life.
No, and that was also part of why I started Boom. Like, that was a big part of it.
You get to just see it happen.
Wanting to see ideas happen. Nowadays, like my philosophy now, I'm in a very fortunate part of my career where it's no longer about selling stuff. I don't give a crap about selling something. I got to make it. If there's not a progress to production, if it's not going to get made, I don't want to have anything to do with it. I don't care how much money you're offering me. I want to see. In my head, I got to know this is on its way to getting made. Otherwise, I'm wasting my time. You only have so many heartbeats.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Next question.
No, absolutely. Let's see. I'm going through your comb like a business takes long. What hard to come up with? Let's see. You mentioned comics dying. We've got a lot of opinions here. We're looking for questions. Let's see it.
Show me the opinions while you're looking at questions.
Oh, okay. What do we got here? Oh, okay. Movies say someone is in it, but may also be a cameo simply using the name to promote and drive in money. With Boss Man.
It happens. I mean, I can't tell you how many projects I've had where they wanted to attach somebody just because they were name value and they were not at all right for the part. It happens all the time. Luckily, it happens mostly on lower budget things where they need that name to drive the box office. But see, that's changing too. Box office is changing. Like it's not about driving box office anymore. Now it's about driving viewership. So what's going to be interesting in that is you're still going to have a need for known actors. Like you see it on Netflix. They're making movies with Chris Hemsworth. You still want that level to attract the viewership. But what's interesting about it is it helps to equalize a little bit. What's also going to draw viewers to streamers are the concepts and the way things look. The visual appeal of something is going to become a lot more important than I think it has been in the past. So,
and I think that you and Jesse have a lot of opinions. He worked in mainstream. He worked for Marvel. He was a professional inker, and he went back and started doing indie. And he liked essentially Cornerstone Creative Studios as a talent agency first, and we're working to convert into a publisher. Okay, but he likes working in indie. He likes working with talent, helping. A lot of times he puts his own hours in to help new talent come up and step up. Yeah, absolutely. And then he does a plethora of indie books. I mean, he's been published in countless independent books. He freelances all the time, publishing. He's worked on a title with some other guys from the studio that got a silver screen movie deal, and just enjoys that indie crowd, looking for new ideas and doing something different. You know what I mean? And so, and encourages creativity. So that's been really great. But I think you guys are in line with that, of liking the idea of something new and something great, and then seeing it get done. Want to see something created from nothing.
Gotta get it made. That's one of the reasons I started this film finance company with a good friend of mine, Labid Aziz, who, controlling the finances, having control of the money is a big part of having control of the creative. And so, get rid of the middleman, fund it yourself if you can.
Yeah, to cut out all that overhead, you just get the creative team and the guy that created it. I mean, that's about as efficient as it gets, and the guy loves what he's doing because he created the title, so you're going to get a good story. If he has any type of skill at all and he loves it, he's going to put his best into it, so you get his best, That's a great model. It's
what they say in sorry, I'm blanking.
It's okay, go ahead.
Film finance, in finance industry, you're not financing the company, you're financing the CEO, the person behind the company. That's what you're really after. You're
That's right.
It's all about supporting someone's vision.
That's right, and I think that's a good investment. I agree with
Products
that.
come and go. I mean, products come and go, but the person who created that product, you want to see them do more, because they may not have just built the next best mousetrap. They may have the cure for cancer. So that's who you want to support.
I think that's why crowdfund's been very popular too, because you get to essentially, you're not just buying a product, you're supporting someone's dream, and so
Exactly.
it has that much more, and you know they care about it, and you get to see it before you buy, the same as if you're in a store. So
Yeah,
hail,
Patreon.
Doc.
Yep.
Hail, Inexorable WordNerd. Thanks, Doc. I appreciate it, man. Looks like Lock and Key.
Lock and
Andrew
Key.
Lucason.
Yeah, love it.
Is fancy. There are also ways to do quality without reinventing the wheel at a high dollar. It just takes some ingenuity. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, yeah. Things don't have to be expensive. One of my favorite science fiction movies of all time is called Primer. I think it was made for $10,000 by some college students, and it's brilliant. It's one of the smartest, most sort of like captivating science fiction films I've seen in the last 20 years. And you don't have to spend money for it to be good. Of course, we all know they've made terrible movies for $100 million or more. It's all about the script. It's all about the story. It's all about the characters and the artist involved.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like that. I like that side of it. It just, for me, it's always felt.
Today I can discuss it too, by the way. I just saw that brief remark.
What was that?
Someone was remarking on the project which cannot be named, and they said they look forward to the day that I can discuss it.
Oh, yeah. Well, maybe we'll get you back here so you can spill the beans for us and let everybody know what's going on. It sounds like you've got a lot going on. I know you're very busy from when we talked yesterday. We were talking.
Yes.
Yeah, good kind of busy. So don't worry about it. If he's not saying anything now, that just means that he's super busy, and there's going to be a lot of stuff for him to dump on you later.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, J.J. Abrams kind of gave birth to this secret project, the mystery box project, and now everyone you work for, no one wants you to tell anybody what you're doing or talk about what you're doing, and you can't until they've officially announced it. They don't want to piss anybody off. So you find you're working on. I mean, I was working on Hellboy years before anyone knew anything. It's just one of those things where you can't. There's now like a million NDAs you sign, but then when they let you talk, and it's bad because I love talking about stuff. I get excited. I'm a fanboy. I love it. I love talking about this stuff. But yeah, I can say so. I'm working on a video game project, a really cool video game. I'm about to start on another one. I'm chasing a tabletop game project, a RPG project that I dearly love.
Oh, nice.
To turn that into a series. We'll be talking about some cool stuff pretty soon. I'll make sure to reach back out to you guys.
And this is Daniel Horowitz. He's one of the guys that helped make the decision. He was one of the decision makers for me getting into the studio doing the comics that I do now. He's a professional writer. He interned at Marvel and Valiant, and then he works as a professional freelance writer. And so he's one of the guys that helped get me my start. And he says, very excited to hear more about this when you can discuss as well. Yeah, he's stoked about the new projects, and he loves writing, and he's been great to me. He gave me great advice. Did I mention it in this stream? But he was the one that gave me the best piece of advice that I've ever gotten as a writer. Was he told me, don't assume the readers are stupid.
No,
don't think. Or he said, don't think your readers are stupid. And I was like, what the hell did he mean by that? I was like, I love my future fans. I would never think they're stupid. And I thought about it. I kind of mulled it over for a week. And then when it finally clicked that what he was saying is I was being too descriptive with my writing, that I wanted to tell them the story and I didn't want them to miss any piece of it, but I was over describing. And so
that'll kill a story. Absolutely.
And so you were saying, leave a little bit of mystery, tell the story. They're going to get it. They're going to get it as you develop it. And so
make your audience work for it. They'll appreciate it.
Absolutely. And what I love is that he found the piece I was missing. Like that he knew exactly, and everybody's been like that. They were very honest and been able to pick out that spot. And so I'm grateful for that. I love that. Continue preaching. So
next time we do this, I'll talk more about process. Like we'll make it more writer focused, since you have a lot of writers on here.
Yeah.
And we'll
a
talk
ton of writers.
What wisdom I can share. I mean, a lot of it's just catch as catch can, and just takes you just got to put the hours in. But there are some little nuggets of wisdom, like your friend's great slice of wisdom pie that he gave you. There are little things like that took me a while to learn, that I can hopefully share with your viewers.
And this is Boss Man here saying, "Continue preaching, sir. We're listening and agreeing." So, and I knew that right away. I said it before he even said it there, but I was like, yeah, this the opinions and the methods seem very, very similar. And I think that's why I was attracted to Legion M, and I think that's why Legion M was attracted to you, and that's why we like Legion M. I think that there's like-minded there, where we appreciate creativity overall, and we've seen that from the projects that have come from Legion M and come from you. So, we feel the same way, I think. And there he is saying it. So I guess I feel that way. I don't know who else does. If you guys like raw creativity and like awesome comics and awesome projects, I mean, I'm sure you guys do. You like experiencing them. You like creating them. So I'll keep this moving. Thank you, Andrew, for this time. I appreciate it.
Let's definitely talk about Legion M some more too. I'm gonna leave you with, as I jump off, I'm gonna leave you with like one piece of writing wisdom that I'm embarrassed to say took me way too long to figure out. And it's such an obvious piece of advice. I don't know why my thick Irish skull didn't accept it. But it's about conflict. Like, writing everything in drama is conflict. Like, so every single aspect of your story, every scene, every moment has to have some level of conflict in it. And a lot of writers forget that. They get so drunk on their great dialogue, or so fascinated by their story or their world that they're building, which is all great. You need all that great stuff. But conflict is where stories live. And it's why you have Butch and Sundance. It's why you have Dave and Maddie from Moonlighting. It's why you have oil and water chemistry in these stories. And sometimes when a scene isn't working, you'll be writing and you're just trying to figure out why this scene isn't working. And you've already gone through the process of, well, is it moving the story along? Because that's kind of the rule number one. If a scene doesn't propel the story, you can't have it. Doesn't matter how cool it is. If it's not in service to the ongoing story, you have to find a different way to do it. The thing I found is, if you look at that scene, it's probably missing conflict. There's nothing worse than two characters agreeing on something. It's just it's boring. We don't give a crap. There's nothing worse than a well thought out plan being executed perfectly in a movie. Terrible. Yeah. Like, if you have a plan in your movie that it needs to be the wrong plan, or it needs to fall apart, or someone needs to be a Judas who's already told the cops about the plan. There always has to be some level of conflict. Even if it's a dad telling his daughter a bedtime story. If you have a scene where dad's telling his daughter a bedtime story, it's got to be that there's got to be conflict in it. There's got to be the daughter doesn't want to go to bed, or she hates the story he's telling, or he's late for a meeting and he doesn't have time to tell this story, but she's making him feel guilty. You've got to have conflict to make a story live.
Yeah, I agree. And an example real quick, I won't take much of your time. We'll jump right back into this, but real quick, Guardians of the Galaxy did that very well. I think that a lot of the plans that they tried to execute went totally off, but it was fun because the characters just kind of went with it, and it was funny, and they ended up winning the day anyway. But a lot of their plans were real messy. The film was more like a character-driven thing that was meant to be. Those situations were meant to be taken lightly, but ultimately they won the day. Even though
it's okay if all those fuck ups come back around full circle and it helps you at the end, or you still pull it off. That's fine, as long as that conflict is there and alive the whole time. Yeah. So if your scene's not working, add a pinch of conflict and see if it helps. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for letting me take up your valuable time with all my nonsense.
That was fantastic.
Me, brother. I appreciate it. And everyone stay safe. Keep your family safe. Stay at home. Keep your social distancing, and don't let this horrible virus get you. And I'll talk to you soon.
That's great advice. Thank you so much for your time, Andrew. We'll have you back another time. Let me know if you have we have reoccurring guests that are coming back, and the show is growing. So we'd love to have you back, and we'll do more of a writing focus. We'll advertise it as such that if people want, because people want to hear that, and they'd like to get a little bit of direction and have some insight and ask some questions to somebody who's done some work professionally. So that would be great for everybody. I think that'd be fantastic. We'll have you back to do that.
Thanks for having me, brother. It'll be my pleasure.
No problem. You've been great. Thank you, Andrew.
Take care, guys. Good night.
Awesome. And so that was Andrew Cosby. I think he was fantastic, and he was great the other day when I talked to him as well. Very cool guy. And so as he said, he's going to be back. We're going to do a more writing focused. I wanted to mention also next week we have some amazing guests. Thank you so much for staying in. I'm sorry we didn't get to everybody's questions. We were just on a roll there and talking, and I'll try to be more savvy about going to the chat. But I have to say I'm not very good with the whole live stream thing. I'm still learning as I go. But the talking, the word nerd part of it, like the words, that part's natural. So you're always going to get that. So aside from that, we're going to have Andrew back. We've got some great guests next week. We're going to have Dheeraj Verma from Cornerstone Creative Studios. He worked for Brian Pulido. Oh, thanks, Dan. Hey, I appreciate it, Dan. I appreciate it, brother. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be doing this. If it wasn't for you and Jesse, so I appreciate that. You guys all inspire me. Dheeraj Verma from Cornerstone Creative Studios. He worked for Brian Pulido on Lady Death. He worked on Transformers for IDW. He's going to be booked next week. We're going to be doing a Cornerstone Chillisode with him. And then in addition, we are going to have Carlos Villas either next week or the week after. He's working on a very cool project, and he's going to do some digital rendering live with us while we talk about his career. Carlos Villas is a very talented man. He was recently he did the Iron Maiden version of Heavy Metal Magazine. He was the colorist on that. Very talented guy. And then we're gonna have Carrie Means next Friday, spelled Fryday. So Friday with Frylock. Carrie Means, voice actor on Aqua Teen Hunger Force, 15-year long-running series, the longest-running series on Cartoon Network, is going to be with us. Good friend of mine, good friend of the studio. And then I'm extremely excited. It's Saturday. I think I'm geeking out way too hard, but we're going to have the Archmage himself, Ed Greenwood, 2 days from now on Saturday. So we're hoping that we're going to have all you guys back to come in and see that live stream. I am beside myself. I grew up with Forgotten Realms. He created Elminster and did the novels for TSR in the Forgotten Realms series, and just a brilliant writer, somebody who I look up to and admire, one of my heroes. And so it's an honor to get to have him on. He also read some of our work from Cornerstone, and some of the work that I wrote, told me that I was a good storyteller and gave me thumbs up. So I was super excited about that. It was such an honor. And so you guys can expect to see him Saturday. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you so much for joining me, the Inexorable WordNerd. This has been great. You guys' questions have been great, and we will catch you Saturday at 10 p.m. the same time. We're going to talk with Ed Greenwood, the Archmage himself. So make sure you come back for that, okay? Thank you so much, guys.